The boxing world is currently captivated by the looming showdown between Naoya the monster Inoue and marigenic model. A clash that promises to deliver fireworks between two of the sport's most technically gifted and physically dominant fighters. Inoue, the undisputed super bantamweight champion, has established himself as one of the most feared pound for lb fighters in the world, with a perfect record and a staggering knockout ratio that has left a trail of devastated opponents in his wake. Akhmadaliev, the former unified champion, represents perhaps the most complete and dangerous challenger Inoue has faced in the division, boasting an impressive blend of power, footwork, and ring IQ that makes him a legitimate threat to dethrone the Japanese superstar. The tension between these two elite fighters has been simmering for months, but it reached new heights when model issued a stern warning to Inoue during their recent press engagements, boldly claiming that he had studied Inoue's weaknesses and was prepared to exploit them in brutal fashion when they finally meet in the ring. Inoue's response to these provocative statements was characteristically calm, yet dripping with quiet menace, a trademark of the champion who prefers to let his fists do the talking rather than engage in a war of words. Inoue simply acknowledged model's skills before delivering a chilling reminder of what happens to fighters who underestimate him, referencing his recent demolition of other highly touted opponents who had similarly talked a big game before being systematically broken down and knocked out. This subtle yet devastating counter from Inoue sent a clear message to both Akhmadaliev and the boxing world at large that no amount of pre-fight bravado can prepare an opponent for the cold, calculated violence that Inoue brings. Once the bell rings, the psychological warfare between these two has become almost as compelling as the physical matchup itself, with Inoue's eerie calm contrasting sharply with a model's more vocal confidence, creating an intriguing dynamic that has fans and analysts debating which approach will prove more effective when they finally settle their differences under the bright lights. What makes this particular fight so fascinating is that Akhmadaliev genuinely appears to possess the tools to trouble Inoue in ways that few previous opponents have managed. The Uzbek fighter's ability to cut off the ring, his relentless body attack, and his underrated defensive skills present a unique challenge that could force Inoue to adapt his normally aggressive style. Akhmad's camp has been vocal about their belief that they've identified subtle flaws in Inoue's game, particularly in how he handles sustained pressure to the body, and they built their entire strategy around exploiting these perceived weaknesses. This level of detailed analysis and confident game planning from McModel's team has added an extra layer of intrigue to the build-up, as it suggests they may have found a blueprint to disrupt Inoue's rhythm in ways that others have failed to do throughout his dominant championship run. However, the great champions always find a way to rise to new challenges, and Inoue has repeatedly demonstrated an almost supernatural ability to adjust and overcome whatever obstacles are placed before him. His fight IQ is arguably his most dangerous weapon, allowing him to solve complex defensive puzzles mid-fight while maintaining his terrifying offensive output, even when opponents have enjoyed early success against Inoue, as Naoya Donaire did in their first encounter. The monster has shown an uncanny knack for making the necessary adjustments to systematically dismantle his adversaries as the fight progresses. This adaptability, combined with his concussive power in both hands, creates a nightmare scenario for any challenger, even one as skilled and confident as Model. The question hanging over this fight isn't just whether Akhmadaliev can implement his game plan, but whether any game plan can truly prepare a fighter for the multifaceted danger that Inoue presents once he begins unleashing his full arsenal. The physical dimensions of this matchup also present an interesting dynamic, as Igman's slightly longer reach and taller frame could theoretically give him advantages in controlling distance if he can prevent Inoue from getting inside and unleashing his devastating power shots. Inoue has historically thrived against taller opponents by using his exceptional footwork to cut angles and create openings for his punishing body attacks, which have systematically broken down larger fighters throughout his career. At Model, it could produce some of the most technically fascinating exchanges seen in the division in recent years. Another critical factor that could influence the outcome is the contrasting mental approaches of the two fighters heading into this high-stakes encounter. Akhmadaliev has adopted the role of the confident challenger, speaking boldly about his preparation and his belief in being the man to finally solve the Inoue puzzle. This outward confidence could either serve as genuine self-belief that translates into peak performance or potentially backfire if it stems from underestimating the champion's abilities. Inoue, by contrast, has maintained his usual stoic demeanor, projecting quiet assurance without feeling the need to engage in verbal warfare. This psychological contrast raises intriguing questions about which mindset will prove more effective when the pressure reaches its peak under the bright lights of fight night. History has shown that Inoue thrives in these high-pressure situations, often performing at his most destructive when facing his most confident opponents, which doesn't bode well for Formal's attempts to get inside the champion's head before they even step into the ring. The stakes for this fight extend far beyond just another title defense for Inoue or a chance at redemption form. For Inoue, a dominant victory would further cement his legacy as one of the greatest lower-weight fighters in boxing history and potentially set up even bigger fights in new weight classes. Formative. Pulling off the upset would instantly catapult him to superstar status in the sport and completely reshape the landscape of the super bantamweight division. These career-defining implications add another layer of intensity to an already compelling matchup, ensuring that both men will leave everything in the ring when they finally face off. The combination of technical brilliance, raw power, and high stakes makes